I started with no intention at all to have a business of my own, which is, I feel like a lot of people either say that they always wanted to have their own business or they had no plans to have their own business. It's either one or the other. I had no plans.
Hey, Flip Your Script listeners, it's Christy Peel. I am so excited for today's guest. The number one question I, as an entrepreneur, get asked is, when should someone with a full-time job quit to launch their own business? People are so curious about this. My answer is always, start with a side hustle. And that's exactly what Brittany Shillingford, founder of Bizzybcrafts, did. Brittany, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So before we launch into how you did it, tell everyone what your business is.
So I make headbands, which sounds crazy, but I make headbands that are comfortable for the everyday person who can't find the time to wash their hair or deal with their hair or just doesn't really care, but also cares because they want to look put together and feel a little bit better about themselves.
So you identified a problem that then you wanted to solve, but you had kind of a giant obstacle to overcome because you didn't know how to sew.
Yeah, I had no idea how to sew. It's funny because I had a sewing machine that my boyfriend at the time bought for me to use for scrapbooking because that was my craft of choice, but I had never used it. And the kind of idea was presented to me, do you know how to make this type of headband? And I didn't, but I knew it involved sewing. So I just kind of figured it out.
Which is something that I think an aspiring entrepreneur thinks, like, I don't know how to do that. And then actual entrepreneurs who have done it go, well, yeah, you just figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
I think for some people, it's a stumbling block. Well, I don't know how to do it. So I won't do it. But these days, I feel like you can really learn anything. If you have the internet, there's the answers to everything. You could figure out whatever the thing is, whatever the question is, or the skill that you don't have. You can learn it much easier than you could have 20 years ago. That's for sure.
Absolutely. The learning curve is so much shorter.
Yeah.
And for perhaps men with shorter hair, women with shorter hair, people with shorter hair, folks that have no hair who are like, wait, I don't get it. Why would you need that? Can you go further into the problem that you're solving? Because I think it's important to understand that, because I think if you don't have this problem, you're like, I don't get it. Like, wash your hair.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my husband, when I first started, was like, I just don't understand what the deal is. It's just a headband. So for a lot of people are realizing that washing your hair every day is actually not very good for your hair. Not only is it not convenient because it takes a lot of time, it's actually not the best for your hair. And people who have busy schedules, just like literally everybody on the planet, and are juggling between maybe trying to find time to exercise, going to their job, having kids if they have kids, and kind of jumping from one thing to the next. I feel like lots of people start businesses because it's a problem for themselves first, and then they realize it's also a problem for other people. I was in school and I was also a nanny, and I was also working and practicing at a yoga studio. So I would go from thing to thing, unable to take a shower, or sometimes I would be able to literally just quick body shower, as I call it. And I was like, I need to make it look like I actually have an intentional outfit. Like I didn't just kind of run out of the house, which is exactly what I did. And wearing a t-shirt and jeans and adding a headband with a pattern takes away from the fact that my hair probably looks frizzy underneath the headband, but also adds to what I'm wearing and makes it look like it's an intentional outfit instead of the hot mess that I felt like I really was.
There's also something so interesting, I think, about having longer hair, because I haven't always had longer hair, but I did it because it's actually easier to have longer hair because you don't have to wash it every day, which for a while I had this sort of stigma, like my grandmother's in my ear, like, you should wash your hair every day. And that, the person who keeps my hair looking decent, she's like, no, you shouldn't. The longer you can go with it dirty, the better it is. You hear some, dry shampoo. So this is absolutely something that is, I don't know if this is something people knew forever or if it's something that we've all figured out about hair in the last 10 years. But having longer hair is easier if you can figure out how to make it look cute when it's sweaty.
Yes, exactly. And it's helpful to have something to just extend it if you don't have the time or you just can't be bothered. And you're totally right. Being able to have those extra days where you're like, oh, I'll put it in a braid with a headband. I'll put it in a bun with a headband, do a bunch of other styles so that if it does not look that great, you can still last a little bit longer without washing it, as your stylist recommended.
Your hair had this problem. You found a solution. You figured out how to sew thanks to the internet. You had a sewing machine, but you entered a pretty crowded space. There's a lot of headbands in the market. What makes your product better?
Well, I have not tried them all, so hopefully it's the best. It's the best that's out there. I believe it is. They're super, super soft. So all of my headbands, or the majority of them, are made with a double brush poly fabric, which brush just means that it's the process of making the fabric, and it's so soft. A lot of headbands, I feel like when I grew up, were those hard, uncomfortable, although they're coming back. I don't understand the trend, but they're hard, they're uncomfortable. If you're a glasses wearer like I am, if you wear headphones in your ears, it's like, how many things can you possibly have in your head at once? And it just gives you a headache. My headbands are super comfortable. They actually stay on your head. Have you ever been to the gym and you see people, their headbands just falling off as they're jogging, and then they just like end up throwing it off? They're like, who cares? What is the point of wearing this? Mine do not do that. And I offer lots of different prints and lots of unique styles that you can't really get in a store, or they're maybe not the best made. I have customers who are international. They live outside of the United States, and they say that they pay the shipping fee because it's not like they can get something like this where they are. So it's worth it for them. So I think all of those things together make them the best choice, but it is a very saturated market.
You've made it though. And I want to take just a little break before we get to the question that I started this with, is like, how did you go from idea, solve, to the taking the huge, huge leap of faith to quitting the job? So stick around. Flip Your Script is produced by Media Mindfield, an agency specializing in earned, owned, and paid media. With clients all over North America, Media Mindfield was founded on the belief every story has value, and the power of a story is unlocked when it's shared. Oh yeah, Media Mindfield's my favorite agency because I started it in 2010 when my 12-year television news career ended. I won some Emmy Awards, got to tell some incredible stories, met some amazing people, and then I was laid off. And that's enough of my Flip Your Script story. You can hear it and others by subscribing to the podcast. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to rate and review. And now back to today's guest. Brittany has shared how she created a solution for a problem. We know that there are people all over the world who believe, like she does, that she's got the best solution for the problem. But before there was a business, there was a side hustle. Brittany, talk about the side hustle and how that worked and how long you did that for.
So I started with no intention at all to have a business of my own, which is, I feel like a lot of people either say that they always wanted to have their own business or they had no plans to have their own business. It's either one or the other. I had no plans. I was in grad school getting my master's for mental health counseling. The plan was to move along with that to become a therapist. And this was just for fun. And it was fun. And it was like a little bit extra money. And that was fine. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have all of these things in place that a lot of people have in place because their intention is to do a real business. But as you said, it was just a side hustle. And then years went by. I graduated school. I worked for 3 years at a job in the field to get my 3,000 hours that I needed to take my licensing exam. I took and passed the exam. And I was like, finally, this is what I was waiting for. I got a job in a private practice. And just a few months later, I realized that I could not do both things. So it wasn't so much that I didn't like my job or I liked one better than the other. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to take the leap of faith that lots of people talk about when quitting their job. It was that the demand was there and I was sewing all of the headbands myself. And I had over 800 orders and I had to make all of them. And it took, I think, 5 or 6 weeks to make every single headband, and customers were, some were nice and understanding and some were not very understanding. And it was then that I realized that, okay, this is a real thing. People are interested in my product. It's not just a few. people, a few orders here and there. This is a real business and I need to put my focus into it if I want to treat it as a real business. And it felt like it wasn't really fair to be spending time with clients who had real issues that they were coming to me to deal with, and also be wanting to go home to spend that time to fill my orders. It didn't, I wanted to help people, but it felt like I was doing them a disservice by trying to split my time. And I figured it would be the best thing to just pick one. And the one that was, I don't want to say like calling to me, because I don't know if I necessarily believe in that, but it was almost like the customers were saying, do this, without even knowing that they were saying that, because I thought I would do both. When I quit my job and I became a therapist, I said I was going to do both. And my husband even said, like, I don't think you're going to be able to do both. Like, eventually one's going to get more busy than the other. And I don't know if it was denial or what it was, but I was like, no, like I'm the decider. I decide how many clients I have. I decide how many orders I have. But of course, that is just not true. And then I just decided, let's do it. This is a good chance. I had my husband on board, not that he, needs to give me permission, of course, but it's so much easier to make a huge decision, especially a financial one, when the partner that you live with is on board. And I figured I had my license. I still have it. I could go back if I need to. I could go work somewhere if I, desperate times, if things start to go downhill. It was like right in front of me. It wasn't like a hard decision. It felt like it was like the thing to do.
There's a few things that you said that I think are worth like pulling out, because I am around a lot of entrepreneurs now. And I think most people on the day that they decide to do that have a perception of what it means to do that. And then when they actually get into it and are doing it, they're like, oh, what I thought this was and what I thought I needed to do to be prepared for this, so wrong. Because it's a little bit like any other big life decision. You're never ready. You never have enough education or money or support, or you just at some point have to jump and see what happens. And your story in many ways is similar to mine, in that if it didn't work, you had some backing. You had a plan B. And I think entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, can look at things and say, here's what I don't have. And you went and looked at what I do have. What I do have is an education. I can always go back. What I do have is someone else bringing money in so that I can eat and have a, shelter. So you looked at what you did have and you had customers. What has surprised you most about this journey that you didn't expect?
I guess that I'm still doing it, which it wasn't like I didn't believe that it would still be going on, but there's a part of you that's like, ugh, this is kind of scary, and when people around you are not negative, but kind of like, oh, good for you. It's not, it is almost 2022. It is not the most common thing. A lot of people have traditional jobs. They work in an office. They get a paycheck every 2 weeks. The majority of people around you, that is their lifestyle. So to tell people that that is what you're doing is a little bit, for some people, you could tell by how they respond that they're kind of in their head like, ooh, best of luck. I wouldn't do that, And of course, it could still take a turn. There's always ups and downs, especially after the pandemic and everything that has happened the last 2 years. But it has been surprising how well it has gone, and how, despite the ups and downs, there have been more ups, and it has just been so enjoyable, I think, to work for myself and to just do kind of whatever I want and make my own schedule. And especially having recently had a baby, the life I have working for myself as a mom is it's just so different than what it would have been had I never decided to leave my job and do this full time.
Congratulations for the baby and for taking the leap and having success.
There's
also, I think, a perception that, okay, well, now there's money coming in. Life is easy. What's the hardest part for you?
I feel like it's very scary not knowing. I don't know how things are going to go. I don't know if they're going to go badly or if I'm going to be able to pay my bills. Now I have a kid that I need to support. We bought a house since I left my job. I have a car payment, normal stuff, but I did not have these things before, which is why I decided to do it when I did, because I knew I didn't have those, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have a baby. But now that I have those things, it is scary. And I don't think people who don't have small businesses, I don't think they think about that. Like, I don't know if I'm going to still be bringing in money. I just don't, I hope people still decide to buy headbands, but every time I have a launch or a release of something, I don't know if it's going to sell or how much of it is going to sell. And that's super scary. It really is scary. And you have no control of it. I could do my best and put the research in, ask for customer feedback, see what kind of patterns people want, etc. But you just have to see how it goes and just run with it.
That's the mindset that I think, there's all these colleges and universities that teach entrepreneurship. You can get a degree and you can study entrepreneurs and all of that. But this is the part that you can't teach, and you either have it or you don't have it. Because in my family, my husband always thought he would start a business. And then him watching me do it, he within a couple of years, he was like, I don't have the gut to be able to do it. I would be up all night worrying. And I just have this like, it's going to work out. I just believe it's going to work out. And you either can get there mentally or it makes you crazy and you can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have that personality where you like your husband, you would crumble. It would not. But I think sometimes you just, like, if your husband had started a business, he might have become the type of person, because you don't have a choice. I don't have a choice because, I guess you always have a choice, but this is what I do. This is how I make my money. So in order to survive and not lose my mind, I have to just kind of trust that everything's going to be okay, because so far it has been okay. And there's only, like I said before, there's only so much you can do. So you got to just keep it moving.
When people ask you about your journey, what's the most common question you get?
I think people ask why I left my job, like they thought maybe I didn't like it or something, which, as I mentioned, was just not the case. Or other people will say, like, wow, it must have been so scary taking a leap and leaving your job. And it wasn't a leap for me at all, because I had the customers and I waited until it happened twice. I had a huge group of orders it was in the spring of 2019. I had a huge group of orders, and then I finished all those orders, and then I had like a little restock, and it happened again. And then I knew, like, okay, this is not like a one-time thing. This job is not like guaranteed, but it felt a little bit more guaranteed. I didn't wake up, start a business, and then be like, quitting my job, bye-bye.
And that is so important. That's the beautiful thing about a side hustle. When I get, like I said, people ask me this all the time, and I always tell them, if you have the opportunity to have someone else pay your bills and give you benefits while you figure out your side hustle, and you can ethically and morally commit to job one that's paying your bills and have the energy to do side hustle to figure it out, do that. Always take that path. Don't quit the job, go to the bank and live off of someone else's money while you figure it out. People do that, and not to disparage, but that I think is a more scary path, because you don't know. You don't know if your product even has any buyers. You have to test the market to see, do other people even have my problem, and do they like my solution?
Yeah, 100%. And I think people think that things just kind of take off, and, people start businesses and they just are successful immediately. Like, I'm in my 8th year, and it took a real long time. And it's still, like I said, we're in the down. There's lots of ups and downs, but being able to do it while you're doing something else. And like you said, having somebody else pay you, because you don't get paid when you work for yourself for a while, because you can't. Because what some people forget, I think, who don't have businesses, is that it costs a lot of money to run a business, a lot. I mean, there is this saying, it takes money to make money. That is so true, especially when it's your business and it's all your money. I mean, unless you have people, venture capitalists, but that is a whole other thing. But it is a big undertaking to just start a business. So to have somebody else kind of support you and have a side hustle is a much better option.
I don't know if anyone's asked you this question before, but I'm curious. If you could have one person wear your product, who would it be?
Oh gosh, no one has asked me this. I don't know. That's such a hard question.
Because I feel like in the product world and beauty, world where you are, that there's the possibility that you turn on the TV someday or look in your, social media feed and there's like Beyonce wearing one of your products and like you lose your mind, right? But is there someone like that for you that would, oh my goodness. And not only that, but let's just say Beyonce was wearing your product. Like think of the demand.
I have thought of this. So I don't have a specific person in mind. I'm sure if I thought about it for 30 minutes, I could figure it out. But I think about this all the time. Like all it takes is like one person. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be Beyonce level. Like somebody who has a good following, whether it's because their job is an influencer or they have some other sort of job that people follow them for, but a following that is trusting of them and respects their suggestions and things like that, I think just would be a game changer. I literally was thinking about it earlier today. Like I feel like part of me is like waiting for that one person, which is silly. And I don't know, maybe it's something to talk to my therapist about, but it just feels like for a small business, something like that is like literally a game changer. Just to have a person, I guess this person would be good. Sarah Landry, she's the Birds Papaya on Instagram. She lives in Canada and her account is fantastic. Her baby was born, I believe, the day after mine. And a lot of her content is related to loving yourself, but not in like just love yourself, in like an unrealistic way. And she does support a lot of small businesses. And I think like she shared my headband, it would just be like, people love her and appreciate her genuineness. I think that's what you need, is somebody who is genuine and is not like every single day going on their Instagram talking about products that they are paid to support. And you're like, do you like any of this stuff? Are you really eating that or drinking that? It's just like, probably not. So I guess I answered my question in less than 30 minutes, which is good for you and all of the listeners.
Well, if anyone knows her, reach out to her. We'll tag her in a post. You just never know. I think in my business, in the PR world, it's fascinating to see how many name brands that we all know and love have one inflection point. There's one person that shares something or one front page of Wall Street Journal, whatever, and then suddenly the business like just goes next level. So that's why I was interested in your answer, because I think people based on Instagram and social media, especially in your space, people think about like, if this one thing happened, boom. And you're now a mature enough business that if it did happen, you could deal with it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. If I was sewing myself and that happened, it would be incredibly overwhelming. But now it would be, I mean, you can see all of the listeners can't, but you can see all the headbands behind me. They're ready.
How have you managed that? Because that's the other really interesting thing I think about being an entrepreneur that most people don't even think about, is that you start and you do all the things. And you continually, if you're successful, you continue to work yourself out of jobs. You work yourself out of payroll. You work yourself out of HR. You work yourself out of manufacturing. And you just continue to change and bring in people who I would argue probably can do better than you. And then you go keep doing the things that you're better at. And that's how business grows in a very, very simple fashion. And if any entrepreneurial professors are listening to me, they're probably like throwing things at their phones because that's very simplified. But how have you done that? How have you found the resources and the people to come around you? Because you said you're not making them anymore. So you had to find people who could make them and keep your standards.
Yes, that was very scary. So when I quit my job as a therapist and then I finished all those headbands, that was when I was like, okay, I cannot sew these anymore. I can't do anything. I could barely eat, I was sewing all of the time. And I don't think my husband appreciated how loud the sewing machine was and the hours of the day that I was choosing to do it. And I truly didn't know what the solution was. And I guess I probably could have Googled it, like I said earlier. But a friend who also, well, at the time she was kind of like, I didn't really know her. I just supported her business. I asked her what she did because I needed help. And at the time, I didn't have as many small business owner friends as I do now that I could go to and say like, I have this problem and I don't know what to do. So I kind of reached out to her on a whim, like maybe she knows, maybe she went through this. And she is the one who suggested to get a small batch manufacturer, which I had never heard of before. Luckily, it only took like a week or so. I went online, I found them, they're based in Brooklyn, and I went to meet with them and they told me, okay, if we want this to be ready for the fall, you need it to be, I think they said early July, and I think it was like June 25th. And I was like, what? I have nothing ready because I never worked that far ahead. I never had to do that. So that was the first step. And that one was a true game changer. And then of course, from there, I was like, okay, I'm not really good with the accounting stuff. I need to be responsible and find that. Then I found an office so that I could work outside the house, because that was, as I'm sure a lot of people last year / this year experienced, is really hard, especially when you have physical products that are taking up space and taking over different rooms of the house. And then I had a friend take website photos because I hated doing that and was really bad at it. And she's fantastic. So she still takes those. And just kind of slowly you decide, like, what do I like to do? What do I have to do that no one else can do? And what do I suck at that I would rather just pay for someone else to do much better, and then I don't have to have it on my to-do list. And that has been really, really great to just have the ability to do that. But lots of people can't, when you first start out, it's like really not an option. You have to just do everything, even if you suck at it.
And you have to love whatever it is that you're producing so much that if you're not getting paid and you're doing stuff that you suck at, you're still happy to do it because you believe that deeply in your solution.
Yes, absolutely. I've had people say to me before, I don't know how you sewed up that many headbands. And I was like, well, I didn't have a choice. I had people who gave me their money. They placed an order and I had to deliver a product, and I didn't have anybody else to do it for me. So I just did it.
It's great. It's such a good behind the scenes look at what it really is like to start, build, grow, and continue to take risks with inside a business. And you also are your own marketing to some degree, and you continue to tell your story, which I also appreciate, because it's difficult to hear true stories of entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs. A lot of books out there on men who have done it. But at this stage you're at, Sarah Blakely is like, and she's a billionaire. And she's talked about, what she's done to get there, but I really appreciate it. And you reached out to us after hearing us on the Wine and Crime podcast. So that's fantastic. Thank you for doing that.
Of course.
What one bit of advice would you give to someone who's like, ooh, I have a side hustle and ooh, I have a full-time job. What should I do?
This is like not, I don't know if this is good advice, but kind of suck it up as long as you can. It's really hard to do both, like really hard, especially depending on what type of job you have. You're tired, you're staying up late. You don't have that, like you get home from work and like you relax kind of lifestyle. But I would say, it sounds dumb to say wait until it's time, because people would say, when is it time? How do I know? But I felt like as long as I was making enough money or the same amount as I did at my previous job, I would be fine, because I lived on that amount previously and I would be good. Would it be great to bring more money in? Of course. But I think that might be good for other people to say, like, okay, I'm bringing home X amount now at this job. How can I get to that amount so that when I quit this job, it's not like, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? And of course, like I mentioned before, it is not guaranteed money. So you don't know. It could be like that for 1 month, and then you quit your job, and the next month your side hustle that is now your full-time job is not bringing in the same amount. But at least if you have that kind of set up, maybe wait a month or 2 or 3 to kind of see that consistency and then decide, okay, I think we're in the clear. It's time.
And I think to your point, money is one really good metric. And based on what you've said in your story, had you kept doing both and had your business kept growing, probably other parts of your life would have fallen apart. I mean, you probably wouldn't have been sleeping very much. At some point, your husband is going to want some of your attention. So it feels like when you can't juggle it all and literally something is going to fall in a state that will be not able to be repaired, perhaps then you have to make a choice.
Yes. Yeah. That is something I hadn't thought about, but that is basically what happened. I kind of couldn't do both. Like I was forced into a decision as opposed to like, okay, I'm going to take the leap. It was like, okay, I'm out of hours in the day and I can't give my time to both of these things. So it's time to pick one.
And you chose wisely.
Thank you.
And at some point, if you're done with Headbands, you have this so much experience. So if you had to, like right now, no one ever wants a headband again. You're done. Would you start another business or would you go back to being a therapist?
I would go back because I do truly love to help people. And there are times when I feel like, am I still helping people? And then I get messages from people who have had brain surgery or dealt with chemo and other things. And they say, oh, your headband helped me with my confidence when I had hair loss and this and that. And it makes me feel like, okay, I'm still helping people. Good thing.
I suspect that women who are, you mentioned it earlier, one of your target audiences are women who are busy moms. And if a busy mom can get 15 minutes back or 30 minutes back or an hour back because they don't have to wash and dry their hair, you're helping their mental health.
Yes. And I've had moms tell me that before, that it just makes them feel like a little bit, it's hard. I mean, it's super hard when you could barely find the time to like take 1 second away from your baby. It's not as simple as like, oh, do something for yourself, put some makeup on. It's like, are you kidding me? I don't have time to do that. I put my baby down, she screams. Like I went through it and I get it. So just to be able to just toss your hair up, put a little headband on, and then, real quick, maybe change your clothes, or even not, even if you're still in your pajamas, just kind of having that, doing something. It feels like it's just one little thing that can help you feel a little bit better about yourself.
You've said some really great advice, and I'm sure people are just grateful for the help and for your honest assessment of your journey. We're going to put links to your product and your Instagram and social media and that sort of stuff on the Flip Your Script podcast website as well. I ask you the final question, Brittany. Is there a quote, lyric, something that has helped you as you flipped your script?
So I don't know who said this, but I have heard throughout my journey that really the only way that you're failing is if you quit. The only reason that I'm still successful is because I'm still going. It's not because I've done like a secret thing or I have the magic touch or some like silly little thing that people think that you have. It's like, no, I just kept going. Even when no one was buying my stuff, even when I had to graduate grad school and find a real job, as my mom told me, I just kept going and didn't quit, didn't give up. And I think that is important for people to remember, that you can't find success if you stop. At least not in that thing, maybe in something else, but you're not going to be successful if you quit doing what you're doing.
Well said. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Brittany's story had a lot of takeaways for those of you who have no interest in being an entrepreneur and think that we're all crazy who do it. And you're right, we are to some degree. However, I think having a community of people around who support you, understanding that to get to the next thing means you have to take the right next step. And that means forward movement, forward progression, and not to give up. My hope is Brittany's story empowers you to believe you're capable of more than you think, to discover motivation, to uncover inspiration, and to find the strength to turn the page.
Thank you for listening to Flip Your Script, hosted by Christy Peel and produced by Media Minefield. If you like our message, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share our episodes with your family and friends. Do you or someone you know have a story about flipping your script? We'd love to share it. Contact us on our website, flipyourscriptpodcast.com. To stay up to date on all things Flip Your Script, make sure to follow host Christy Peel on social media. You can also check out the website for pictures, resources mentioned in the show, and other great episodes.